WNST, Towson, Baltimore Football League, and certainly from our perspective, happy times that the Ravens can go out to Oakland and steal a victory. But around the league, some sort of, this parity thing, Luke Jones, is starting to take hold outside of, let's say, Kansas City, where they went late into the night. But by and large, lots of home teams lost over the weekend, Steelers lost over the weekend, and some of the more surprising teams, maybe Carolina, the Jets, they managed to win on the road as well.
Yeah, lots of surprises in that way, and I think one of the big takeaways, and we saw this with the Ravens to a lesser degree, not as though the Ravens lost any major players, but look at some of the injuries around the league. I mean, Odell Beckham, J.J. Watt. I mean, this was a body bag kind of weekend. We saw the Ravens.
Dude, those are the guys on, like, the EA Sports. They're the two best players in the league, sort of thought, jersey sales, kind of all of that stuff. For both of those guys to go down within 6 hours of each other, that's not good, man.
It's not. I mean, when you talk about non-quarterbacks,
right?
J.J. Watt and Odell Beckham they're as good as it gets, and certainly as marketable as it gets. I mean, we saw what J.J. Watt did for the Houston community with his social media efforts to raise money. Just incredible to see. He missed most of last season with the back issue, so that was tough to see. I mean, what's it called? The tibial plateau fracture in his leg. I mean, it sounds painful, doesn't it? I mean, it's just, and it's a shame because you look what's happening with Houston, despite their loss on Sunday night. I mean, they've got a quarterback. Watson's the real deal. It's been impressive to see him do what he's done to this point, but when you lose someone like J.J. Watt, I mean, that's one of those, like, you see what happened to the Ravens a couple years ago when Terrell Suggs went down in Week 1. I mean, that hurts you from a psychological standpoint as much as it hurts you on the field. So you see that with Beckham. I mean, the Giants are 0-5 now, and they lose Odell Beckham. They lost all their other receivers as well. So,
dude, we've had some nightmares around here and some bad starts, and, we're Ravens fans who've been at this 22 years. Dude, 0-5. Wow. I mean, wake me the year the Ravens come out of the gate 0-5, and you tell me what the fan base is going to look like at that point. I don't think anybody saw this coming for the Giants like this, right?
No. I mean, their offensive line's really bad, but I mean, the same narrative kind of existed about the Ravens' offensive line, and to this point, they've gotten to the 3-2 mark, even with an O-line that hasn't been exactly stellar, no matter how it played on Sunday. But I mean, that Giants team. Yeah, they've lost some close games. I mean, even on Sunday, they lost in the last minute to the Chargers.
Well, somebody had to win that game. I mean, at some point, they had to get to one.
Although I saw a lot of people really lobbying for there to be a tie there. Remember, overtime 10 minutes this year. They shortened it this year. People were lobbying for that. But you're right. I mean, what's happened to the Giants reminds you a lot of what happened to the Ravens 2 years ago. I mean, when they were sitting there at 1-4, and you were just thinking, well, the season's probably about over. And then the injuries got even worse after that. So it's tough. I mean, as much as you talk about the Ravens' issues prior to Sunday's win in Oakland, you look at what the Giants have endured, and you kind of gain a little bit of perspective in that way and say, well, the injuries have been terrible, but it could be a heck of a lot worse. And it did get a heck of a lot worse with the injuries on top of a loss for the Giants on Sunday. But going back to your main point about the parity, trying to get this league to sort itself out, so to speak. Kansas City looks exceptional. There are some other teams that I think have looked really good, but most of the teams, and when I say most, I'd probably say somewhere in the neighborhood of 24, 25 teams. I'm not sure there's a ton of separation. I'm not sure how big of a difference there is between 3-2 and 2-3. With most of those teams in this league right now.
Well, and they're all there. I mean, if you just go up and down, you say, okay, we'll throw the Chiefs out, and maybe even throw the Packers out at this point, or maybe the Falcons. I know the Panthers have gotten to 4-1 as well. I don't know that I'm buying what they're selling as much, even through all the tears and the apologies for insulting, 51% of the humans in the country, as he did, I think, last week from the press conference. But the mediocre teams trying to figure out who's really not mediocre? Like, where are the Patriots at this point who were lucky to win on Thursday night in one of those slop fests? Where are the Steelers at this point who have been Jekyll Hyde? Certainly for the Ravens, I think it's as much conundrum around the country. We watch them more closely than other people do, but that was an impressive win in Oakland. I mean, I don't know what else to say about the Ravens this week. We could talk about the Raiders' injuries and bad things that happened to them and their quarterback, but to go 3,000 miles looking the way they looked the last 2 weeks and win a football game, the Ravens are the biggest surprise of the week for me. I didn't think they could win in Oakland the way they were assembled.
Well, I think Jacksonville's the biggest surprise. I think Jacksonville going to Pittsburgh and doing what they did against the Steelers, I think that's a bigger surprise. And that's not to take anything away.
But we thought they might have been a good team, though. I mean, I think most of us thought the Ravens were going to stink after
really
the last 2 weeks.
I mean, I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if they're a good team. They lost to the Jets a week ago.
I think they're a good defensive team. I mean, I think that the defense is going to get better. They have quality players there. The defense is going to come before the offense does there for me.
Well, it's because Blake Bortles, no one has any faith in him. I mean, I think everything about that team but the quarterback looks very, very promising. But when you're talking about your exception being the quarterback, we know how that typically winds up for teams. But, it was a good win for the Ravens. Don't get me wrong. But I think Jacksonville, very, very surprising. I think that, I know they played the Browns, but the Jets win again. I mean, are you kidding me? They're 3-2. I don't think they're any good, but...
Or as my friends who are Jets fans, all three of them put on Facebook, the first place New York Jets. So yes.
the first place New York Jets, who are now going to screw themselves out of getting a quarterback because of how they're playing. I mean, they're going to play just well enough to not be able to get a franchise quarterback the way that they need to. So it's tough to figure it out, though. I mean... You mentioned New England. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll figure it out because I feel like they've been in this position before, and then all of a sudden you look back up in mid-December and they're 11-3. I'm not sure they're going to be that good, but if anyone's going to figure it out, it's going to be Bill Belichick with that team. Although you're right, that defense, despite only giving up 14 points on Thursday night, a lot of that had to do with Tampa Bay not being able to make any field goals. So. That's a team that has issues. We've talked about the Raiders quite a bit. I mean, they're at 2-3 right now. If they get Derek Carr back, I think they'll be okay. But who knows? I mean, they weren't looking all that great with Derek Carr. The Bengals suddenly have won 2 in a row, and they're 2-3. I'm not saying I'm a big believer in them, but they've certainly picked themselves up off the mat a little bit after making a coordinator change. You mentioned Carolina. I think the Eagles are a really interesting team. The way that they've played, haven't necessarily had any huge signature wins, but even in their one loss at Kansas City, they played pretty well in that game. So, how real are the Eagles? I mean, I think that's a pretty interesting team right now. Carson Wentz played a heck of a ball game on Sunday. So, you've got some young quarterbacks in this league that are playing well. Jared Goff on Sunday did not play well, but we've seen him play well prior to that, prior to struggling against Seattle. So you're kind of trying to figure this out. I mean, you have some older quarterbacks in this league, like Roethlisberger, like Eli Manning now, who has nothing around him, on top of not being very good. And you're trying to figure out, is the old guard just old or just struggling right now? And you have some of these new teams, some of these upstart teams with some younger quarterbacks where there's some intrigue there.
Well, they're week to week, right? They're going to, buying stock on any of the young quarterbacks is, look at all the stock we bought on Dak Prescott last year, right? And, they lost again on Sunday night. So, it happens.
Yeah, it does. And, even though, you look at the fact that they gave up 35 points, I'm not sure how much you can hang that on Dak Prescott, but it does show that this is tough to win in this league. For every team like New England where you just pencil them in, you have 20 teams that from year to year look decent, and then they'll be lousy the following year. It's really difficult to win in this league. And then you take into account injuries, like we saw a ton of them around the league on Sunday, that it really changes things. Look at Houston. As good as their defense has been over the last 3-4 years, you only wonder now. It's a shame for them that Deshaun Watson didn't come around a couple years sooner, because now with J.J. Watt, you start to wonder, this is 2 years in a row now, this guy's missed most of the season. has his window shut as being the most dominant player in the NFL on the defensive side of the football.
Well, it's really a shame. You talk about how they've drafted over there and how they've stunk, and they got Clowney, they got Watt. They had a group of special guys there, and they're not going to win buckets through this period right now. Maybe next year, maybe the year after, but they've built something there honorably and with integrity and with good drafting and with good moves, and now they found a quarterback, and they still can't get up and walk, literally, right, because of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that threatens to derail you. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I mean, he threw 5 touchdowns. The very last one was a complete the definition of a garbage time touchdown, but that's impressive. I mean, go back and look at what Joe Flacco's numbers were as a rookie and see what Deshaun Watson's done already to this point. I mean, it's impressive, but when you lose a J.J. Watt, I mean, that's really difficult to recover from. But, I mean, if that team's going to prevail in that division, which I'm not going to count them out entirely in that division. I mean, you're talking about Jacksonville and Tennessee that they're competing with right now, and Indianapolis. I mean, they still have a chance, but certainly that defense not nearly as formidable now when you're talking about taking Watt out of the equation, and that's not even taken into account. They lost some other players in that game as well. I think Whitney Merciless they lost very early in that game, so that's tough. But I mean, you just around the league right now, you're trying to figure this out. You're trying to see some separation. There are a handful of teams that have looked, Kansas City's looked great. And beyond that, there are a handful of teams that look pretty good. And after that, there's a whole lot of teams that they look good one week, they look terrible one week.
Well, there's a whole lot of we got a game this week. Let's see how it goes, right? I mean, look at the Ravens this week against the Bears, right? Like this looks like a little bit of a Hallmark card. I assure you, at 2:30 on Sunday, we won't be thinking that when the game's 16-13 and Flacco's throwing a pick or somebody put the ball on the carpet. I mean, that's the nature of the league, but 2-3 and 3-2 is the rule of the day right now. And look, I'm not thinking I'm not penciling the Chiefs in for Minnesota just yet, bro. Alex Smith is the quarterback. They've had a nice month,
Although Alex Smith has looked really good, as much as he's been a guy that's been maligned, and he's the guy that we always use as an example of decent quarterback, better than half the quarterbacks in the league, but not a guy that you identify as being able to take you to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. And that's he's been the example there. He's been the case study. They've had some really good regular seasons in Kansas City with him, and you get to the playoffs and you realize you don't have a chance because you don't have an offense that's explosive enough. Well, they have some playmakers now. I mean, the kid at the running back position has been terrific for them. And he's got some weapons in the passing game with Kelsey, and he's got Tyreek Hill. And Kareem Hunt's been outstanding. So maybe Alex Smith can be good enough playing the brand of football that he plays. He's been incredibly efficient, and you've seen him push the ball down the field a little bit more as well. So, but I'm with you. I'm not ready to pencil them in to represent the AFC. I still think before it's all said and done, New England's going to be a team that's a force to be reckoned with until they prove not to be. I think that's as begrudgingly as you try to say it, you can't count them out until they officially prove that they're not worthy of being just considered that automatic dangerous team year in and year out. I mean, they've been doing it too long. And Bill Belichick's had some teams that have looked really lackluster this time of year, and come December they figure it out, and before you know it, they're number 1 or number 2 seed in the AFC. So, it's been nice to see some surprises. I mean, Jacksonville's been a surprise, certainly, in the AFC. But how this all plays out, stay tuned next week. And John Harbaugh even said this in his press conference, citing the Ravens and, of course, citing some of the other 1 o'clock games that he knew the result of, probably Pittsburgh being at the top of the list. He flat out said, I mean, this week was a perfect example of this being a week-to-week, 1 week kind of season deal in the NFL, where just because you think you figure some things out, then the answers or the questions completely change.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. I would also tell you Luke will be on the backfields at Owings Mills all week long. We are monitoring all of the postseason baseball. Get ready for the League Championship Series this weekend as well around these parts. And don't forget, our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It is all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. Our tech service is the best thing we do around here. If there's breaking news, you're going to get it first on the WNST tech service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday. That is Dennis Kolatzis. He'll drive you home from 3 until 5 with the SSV on WNST. Always a little extra pep in the step after a beautiful road victory for the Baltimore Ravens in Oakland on Sunday. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net anytime, anywhere. We have a beautiful new addition to our household that we chose. She actually chose us at Be More Humane over the weekend, so you'll be seeing her pictures out on our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and, of course, we stream live on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are finding a new home for our Purple Live shows. We'll have some information on that later on in the week. We're hoping to do our first show again next week. My birthday is this week, so big thanks for everybody on the birthday. Congratulations. And if you're from Dundalk or love Dundalk or want to come celebrate Dundalk, next Friday I am entering the Dundalk High Hall of Fame, and I'm excited about that. My family's excited about that. At least a handful of my old Owl friends are excited about that, so we hope you come out for that next Friday. We'll have some more details about a day of Dundalk celebration next Friday. That would be the 20th of October. In old Dundalk, as they say. Sad that my mom's going to miss this one. She would have loved it. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.